So let's talk about aliens. Let's go. Do you want me to talk about it?
Let's go, my dear. It's written right here, so we should do it.
The invasion has already begun.
I would like to discuss whether an invasion has already occurred here or if it is imminent.
Will someone...
Or will everyone see it? What's it going to be like?
This is a subject that can only be approached through the perspectivism I mentioned, because it has many angles of approach. Going straight to the last perspective you mentioned, yes, this so-called invasion has several moments that are predicted to happen in which everything will have to be seen in the open.
Will it be on TV, on the radio, on the internet?
Sure. Whether we'll understand it or not is another story. How long we will need to understand it, to mature on these issues, given that our capacity, our ability to read them is almost non-existent, is another story. So looking at it from this perspective, everyone will see it. At some point we will. Now, moving on to another aspect, what kind of invasion are we talking about here? There are two. There's the invasion of beings that live in this biological universe in which we live. And this invasion started way back. It just had a historical process in which these beings that were here on Earth ended up fighting. They ended up scrapping their own warlike condition. At that time, humans were mere pets. Humans ended up rationalizing themselves, but that's another story. Humans ended up reproducing, and these beings were unable to reproduce, and what would have supported them in terms of warlike force never arrived. So the portals that existed between this universe and the other were closing. So things became more and more isolated, and humans ended up dominating the Earth. We think that the history that exists is just this human history of ours, which goes back to when we first appeared, and we don't believe a word of what existed before we came into being. But before we came into being, the Earth was already invaded, both by beings from this biological universe, beings who take their ships, come from other worlds inside this universe and settled here, as well as beings from a neighboring antimatter universe, who through the portals also settled here, but these portals closed in the year 2012. Most of them left, many died. But they are opening portals again, only technological ones this time, to come here again. So, from the perspective of humans who live in our current time, and are ignorant in the sense that they don't know these facts, that human who has never studied these subjects and has been conditioned to think that the flying things are for crazy people because it's counter-information, has worked precisely to cretinize all of humanity, so that humanity would never take seriously the issue that was happening right in front of them, which is the fact that something strange happens in the sky all the time, and then, oh, that's crazy, and you go on living your little life here. And that's one aspect of the story. What's the other? It's what mythologies tell us about beings from this neighboring universe. And since we don't believe in mythology either, we don't take it seriously. So you see, if what I'm saying here is correct. What am I saying? That humanity has been conditioned to be ignorant in relation to these subjects. Because today we are totally ignorant in relation to the fact that the invasion was back there. It's not that it's going to happen, it's going to continue. So first of all, regarding the topic you've chosen for us to talk about here today, invasion, let me make this clear. It's not going to start. It's not that it's going to start, it's that it's already been there. It's never stopped existing. We've just been dumbed down, or we've been conditioned not to notice it. And we think that this is the only history we know. because there have been several burnings of archives about the past, so we no longer have anything about the past, the little we do have, which is mythology. Religion says it's the devil's work. Science, philosophy says it's bullshit, nonsense. So in short, the invasion isn't going to start, it's going to continue, so that's another perspective. What is another perspective in the context of perspectivism? If someone asks me, in your opinion, where is the main news story or the number one news story of this invasion that you're saying started back there? It's not that it's going to happen now, it's just going to happen again openly, in the same way as before. And that's our problem. This is well described in the Mahabharata, in the Puranas, and in other cultural books of our brothers and sisters in India. But not even the Hindus can understand and take seriously in the terms I'm using here what is described there because they understand it in a romantic way. But what am I saying? Or what I'm trying to say from now on, trying to answer your question, is that the Mahabharata has already told us about the beginning of this invasion that I'm talking about here. This invasion of beings from this neighboring universe coming to Earth is described in the Mahabharata at a time when not even the beings of this universe here were already doing this. So the beginning of invading the Earth was done by this group. Where is this depicted? At a time when Brahma, as it is said in the Mahabharata, the sons of Diti and Kadru, have come here and on earth have become kings. The Asuras, or Titans, were so arrogant that they were disrupting the lives of the rishis in their hermitages. Brahma words, all the celestials available who listen to me, try to be born on earth and destroy that race of Asuras, the children of Dith and Kadru. What does that mean? It's a whole other mess to understand. Brahma, or Yahweh, at some point in this history of 13.8 billion years, he had various illnesses in which he would simply fall into a coma. The angels would try to revive him and he would sleep for millions of years. There is the famous Brahma's sleep. What's wrong with the relationship between these moments of coma and our reality? It's just that more recently, one of the last times he fell ill, when he woke up, he found himself regenerated. For the first time in 13.5 billion years, about 300, 400, 200, 500 million years ago, we can't be precise here, Brahma found himself regenerated. Then he created 2 generations of beings. There is what the Mahabharata calls the 2 regenerated generations of the Creator. It's not just the Mahabharata. 2 or 3 Puranas tell the same information. The sons of Brahma's mind, who were 7, Marish, Atri, Pulastya, Angiras, Pulaha, Kratu, and Vasishita. These 7 are the children of Brahma's mind, but he also created children from Brahma's regenerated body, Brigu, Daksha. This Daksha had 62 daughters. Of these 62 daughters, 13 mixed their genetics with Marish's son called Kasyapa. And of these 13 daughters, 2 were called Diti and Danu, who are mentioned in the Mahabharata, and the sons of Diti and Danu with Kashyapa who are those in Greek mythology called the sons of Uranus and the sons of Kronos. In other words, the primordials and the Titans. These beings fell on earth and became arrogant emperors and were bothering, I'm just repeating what I've already said, the rishis in their hermitages. So the Mahabharata says that 100 and 200 million years ago, this is what we're talking about here. This happened here. In other words, the earth was invaded by the hosts of this neighboring universe because Brahma ordered all the available celestials to be born on earth with whatever they could to defeat the Asuras. What would emerge later as the generation of Devas or Olympians, Zeus or Indra, is the unfolding of this. So, the invasion of Earth began here. What's even more complicated about this? It's because 100 million years before that, there was life on Mars. And Brahma's children had already invaded Mars because he had ordered them to do so, because Odin's children had dominated Mars. Then there was the Ragnarok, about 300 million years ago. And since life was destroyed on Mars, that's why this story moved to Earth, and Brahma sent his people to invade Earth, because Dita and Danu's children decided to invade Earth when Mars went bankrupt or had its life destroyed. NASA's latest missions, Dr. John Brandenburg. The guy is a physicist from the University of California, worked at NASA. He discovered Mars with cars that read the chemical elements. Those little jeeps that managed to land on Mars, xenon and krypton, are types of radioactive minerals that only occur in the soil layers if a nuclear atomic explosion has occurred there. And the guy discovered this 300 million years ago. There are scientific indications that there have been 2 explosions on Mars. A very large one that created a canyon 700 and a few kilometers long, and another minor in Sidonia. So this here would be the Ragnarok that took place 300 million years ago, which is told by Norse mythology. And it's a fact prior to that the Mahabharata tells us about, of the most recent phase of the invasion of beings from this universe into ours. The first phase was on Mars. The second was on Earth. So, back to the beginning. The invasion began back then. What we're experiencing today in 2025 is the unfolding of a historical process that is described in several ancient books. But there isn't a scientist, a paleoanthropologist, an archaeologist, a historian, a philosopher who understands what we're talking about here, and nobody talks about it. And that's why we remain blind, ignorant in relation to a subject that suffocates us. That the beings of this neighboring antimatter universe, who lost the ability to pass through the portals because they closed in 2012 due to an issue of entropy, they are creating portals and are sending the first guinea pigs through them soon. The organized force of these beings will come, and these beings aren't from this universe, they're from this neighboring universe. Then there are the people from this universe who are also arriving here on Earth. All because we humans are the last species that emerged in these 13.8 billion years, and we have a DNA that can do this marvelous thing I mentioned, of the Buddha's law of mind, answering your question. You can build in the human being whatever the human being can build in him as long as he knows how to dream. Transform the dream into a mental plan. Create the quantum sensation of self-realization in himself of what he wants. And in being clean, in terms of mental files and complicated memories, he starts to levitate, he heals himself, he walks on flowers, he walks on water, he disappears here and appears here and there. The human being is not what we are, no. We are a type of human being, and this type is just one of the stages of human evolution. Nobody knows what a human being is. A human being will only be fully defined when its process of transformation is over, but nobody knows when it will end. But there are beings who are crazy to end the human experiment so that the human being doesn't go on, to fulfill its universal destiny, which nobody knows exactly what it is. But the invasion will continue, not that it will start.
So we're going to have to get used to it
Look, unfortunately,
because we think it's unprecedented, huh?
there's no government that can prevent it. The governments on Earth all know of beings that are not human present on Earth. If you listen to the last news reports of people testifying before the U.S. Congress, in almost all of them, when the subject is mentioned, they say the worst thing. They're not beings from this universe, they're from other dimensions. They say it like that. What other dimensions are they? The ones I told you from this neighboring universe that I'm talking about, that mythologies have already mentioned, but this whole group doesn't know about it. And they are beings who aren't super powerful. They're ugly, they're primitive, they're demented, they're proto-rational. But they do have the technological capacity. Here on Earth, we have a special kind of autism called savant, in which you can't take care of yourself, you don't go to the toilet on your own. But if you listen to an opera, you memorize the whole thing if you read a book. In other words, you're super intelligent in the intellectual sense. But in the other senses of life, in the field of rationality, it falls short. In other words, it's a kind of genome. These neighboring beings are like that. They have super capabilities in the field of intellect. But when it comes to managing their emotions, when it comes to managing their psyche, they're horrible. The Chaos series, which talks about Zeus and blah, 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 that's a bit of a joke, but it shows some of the dementia aspect, some of the weirdness that these beings have in their own expression. And this is what Isildaeus described in the Theogony when he showed the Greek gods. In Greece, when a family was happy, someone would come and say, hey, don't show too much happiness because the gods get jealous. If Hera finds out that you think you're too beautiful, she'll come and make you ugly, which is very strange, but that's what mythology tells us.